Look, I've always argued the truth of the axiom that when you're sick of saying it, someone may start to hear it. But it's clear that no matter how coherent the argument is about the urgency of addressing the dreaded foot and mouth disease, the Albanese Government and its minister are at best marking time. Interesting, isn't it? In opposition, the now Agriculture Minister Murray Watt was amongst the keenest proponents of purpose-built quarantine facilities for COVID. He repeatedly called for dedicated COVID quarantine facilities to be built in every state. But instead of enacting emergency biosecurity measures, including quarantine, the minister flew to Bali to be hosted by the Indonesian ambassador. It seems Labor's appetite for quarantine has diminished. Presumably, the minister prefers flying into Bali, a foot and mouth disease-struck tourist destination, rather than stay in Australia to enact emergency biosecurity controls. I said last week this crisis has not received anything like the publicity or attention it deserves. I mentioned that after the State of Origin match, Nathan Cleary and his teammates flew off to Bali. I'm not criticising them. There's no evidence anywhere that the Albanese government understands this crisis, nor would these young men have been told. Let's face it, this did not happen yesterday. The first case of foot and mouth disease in Bali was detected late last month. More than 300,000 animals across Indonesia have been affected. It doesn't infect human beings, but the disease spreads rapidly amongst cloven hoofed animals, that is, those with divided hoofs. It is an airborne disease transmitted through contaminated feed, faeces, or even clothing. When this overtook Britain, as I told you last week in 2001, more than 6 million pigs, cows and sheep had to be destroyed. But our agricultural industry is much bigger than that of the UK. If it strikes here, and it may already have struck, pigs, cattle and sheep would have to be destroyed, and Australia is rife with feral pigs, feral goats, feral deer. Does someone in the federal government understand that this disease, once in Australia, would be unstoppable? The virus is highly infectious. It spreads rapidly between livestock. It can survive on objects like vehicle tyres, livestock trucks, equipment and clothing. As I said last week, the Penrith footballers could easily pick up the virus, pack their clothes, return home and unknowingly let the virus loose. But all we get is a photo of our Agriculture Minister. There he is, Murray Watt, shaking hands and smiling with his Indonesian counterpart. And the promise down the track to send 1 million vaccine doses to protect Indonesian livestock against the disease. But the disease has increased in Indonesia in a week by 50,000 cases. It has spread to 22 of the archipelago nation's 37 provinces. Does that frighten the tripe out of anyone in the Australian government? The sadness for animal lovers lies with the fact that all animals infected on Bali have been killed. All our Agriculture Minister can say is that biosecurity would be ramped up at airports. Would be. That Indonesia will get $5 million to buy and distribute vaccines. I said on Thursday that tourists from Indonesia should not be allowed into Australia and tourists out of Australia should not be allowed into Indonesia. But all we're told is that more biosecurity officers and detector dogs will be deployed at Australian airports. Not are deployed, will be. This is nowhere near good enough.